Witchy Wednesdays. I actually never really heard of this term until I was living in Arizona, and I saw, painting outside of a coffee shop, and they were talking, things about Wicca and paganism and magic and everything. I was like, oh, what's this? And they're like, hey, come on, it's Witchy Wednesday. I'm like, it's what? So yeah, I wanted to bring some of that back, that connection. So thank you for being here and joining me. And let's see, saying hi to everybody in chat. Teresa Levine, Tangi, baking her cookies. Lovely. And we got Spiritual Rain. Hello, Rain. Thank you for joining us as well.
Now, I went over to your channel. I put in a comment, but I'm still not, I'm not able to make comments here. I can do the private chat, but I can't do the comments. I know. So everybody just forgive me.
I do see you here though. It says the Cool Crone. You said hello.
I know, and that came from YouTube. But if I leave the YouTube page up, we get a delay and an echo. So I don't want to leave it up. So I'm sorry. One of these days I'll figure this all out, guys. I'm sorry. So
What do you think it would help if I made you a moderator?
Maybe.
Here, let me see if I can do that. Hello, Amanda. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Amanda. I got all these Spiritual Rain, Teresa Levine.
You stay right there.
Roman Biscotti. Oh, thank you guys for joining us. It's very, very cool. Yeah, because your thumbnail was beautiful, Heather. I'm sorry I couldn't do anything with it. I've been fighting.
Well, it was kind of last minute. I was up till 2 a.m. because I'm like, when it comes to art, because I'm creative, I'm an artist. So when it was coming that, I'm like, no, this isn't right yet. No, this isn't right yet. No, maybe if I put this here and I put that there, I change this font. Maybe if I change the color. I was up till like 2:30 this morning.
Oh my gosh. I should have you do my thumbnails.
Oh my goodness. I'm just sometimes too much of a perfectionist. Okay, so why are you not taking me to where I need to go? Okay, there we go. So my volume is down. Let me find you on here. While I'm here, I'm just going to go ahead and make a few people moderators.
So they can keep out those Halloween trolls.
Yeah. Okay, so everybody, I think, okay. So I made you a moderator. I don't know if that's going to make it easier for you. Oh my goodness. Boy, we're getting a big jump here. Hello, Lisa. Thank you for joining us.
Amanda, Warrior Girl. Aries Girl, Warrior Girl. Hi, Warrior Girl.
Ivana. Hi, Ivana. Thank you for stopping by, though.
Yeah. Okay. Well, at some point in my life, it'll work. I still
we have another crone in the chat in the house. Hello, Nancy. Nancy, you'll have to join us one of these nights. I would love to have you on with Colleen and I.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's great.
Nice, very nice. So, yeah. Well, I just want to start out with one of my favorite quotes ever, and most of you will probably know where this came from, which movie. I'm not sure if you know which aunt actually said it, but there's a little witch in all of us. I've always loved that line. Some may have a little bit more of an extra boost to their magic, or their connection, but there's a little witch in all of us. So not sure if anybody in chat knows what movie that's from, and even more specifically which aunt had to say. I sympathize, Colleen. Oh, with the favorite movie ever. Well, okay, Warrior Girl, what movie is it? If you know, yep, Tangi got it. Practical Magic. But who was the aunt? What was the name of the aunt? And her real Stocker Chan. No, it was Diane Wiest. Excuse me. I believe it was Diane Wiest, the actress, but her character, Aunt Jet.
Shit. I remember that.
I mean,
Oh
they
my
were
gosh.
fun.
Yeah.
Midnight Margaritas.
Yeah.
That was great.
And that movie and probably the TV show Charmed encouraged so many people, so many women, I think,
Yep,
especially to delve into Wicca, into magic, into witchcraft. So many people.
I have all 8 seasons, and I have this.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I just
My
watched it last year. I watched it was the new version and I watched all of
oh,
it. It was
I can't. I can't connect with the revamped. I'm like, bring me my girls back. You can still do. I think they would have gotten a bigger following. But Shan Doherty was my favorite. Prue was when she left and they killed off Prue. My heart broke. I was like, I don't want to watch this anymore. I mean, come on. And then when they brought Rose McGowan into it, I thought, okay, you know, the storylines were a little silly after a while, after the couple seasons after that. But especially when Kaylee Kuko, and then later on, I was like, wait a minute, when that other TV show that she was on, um, Big Bang Theory, I
mhm.
was like, wait a minute, she got her start on Charmed. So, but no, I love the first like 2 or 3 seasons are my favorite. So every now and then I like to pull them out and watch them. So yeah. Oh, Phoebe was your favorite. Oh, I would have preferred to have had Phoebe killed from the storyline instead of Prue and Rose McGowan and Shannon Doherty and Holly Marie. To me, that would have been fantastic. But you know,
It takes
so
all
just
kinds. You
yeah.
never know what the audience and what the producers are looking at. Who knows?
Hmm.
Who who knows? Who knows?
Oh, so
So let's
um,
talk about witchiness.
yes, yes. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
Um, so you brought with you your favorite authors, and I'm going to go ahead and let. Oh, before we go to that, I did have a question that I set aside because we talked about this backstage, so I know I can ask you this. Um, what is your personal, not everything else that's written all over, but what is your personal definition, understanding, and experience of the word witch?
Aside from the fact that it's a much maligned word, we'll just leave that to the side for another conversation.
Yeah.
I think witch encompasses a lot of different things. I think anyone who has ever improvised on a recipe to cook for their family is a witch. I think anyone who has ever decided that, they really wished their neighbor would move away and they did is a witch. So I think I agree that there's a little bit of witch in all of us, and I include men in that. I think that when you harness your own intention, you can get whatever you want and do whatever you want, and it harm none. As long as you don't hurt anybody else, you're cool. And for me, the word witch is one that in my civilian life, because I have a civilian job, I've had to be very careful about, which really pisses me off because
You
why?
should have to.
Why
Even
should I
today,
have to be that
yeah.
careful? But the truth is that I also have to be careful just because I'm a woman and I work in a predominantly male field. And
There you
that
go.
that pisses me off too. But I deal with it and I've dealt with it fairly successfully. I'm however old I am and I still work and I still get along with the men that I work with and I still practice witchcraft. So there you go.
And I think a lot of it has to stem with fear. And in the book that I was sharing with you backstage, and I'll share with everybody, I absolutely love this book. It came out in the 2000s. Her name is Phyllis Carell, and she's a Wiccan high priestess with the ARA tradition, and it's called Witchcrafting: A Spiritual Guide for Making Magic. And the one question that she had posed under when it came to talking about doing magic and connecting with being a witch is that um, a lot of it has to do with fear of power. And why do we fear power, especially our own personal power? And I think a lot of it has to do with how we are raised, the environment,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. I mean, the patriarchy has done an excellent job in educating us about the fact that we're not entitled to power. They've
Hmm.
just, gone over and above, type A there. And that also pisses me off. But when I remember and think of myself purely through my witchiness,
Hmm.
I'm not afraid of my power. But when I have to cover things up and go into my, you know, male dominated job, it's really easy for that to creep in, to be afraid of my power. And it really sucks because it's like this little never ending battle, to
Hmm.
keep myself believing that I am powerful no matter what. I'm divine no matter what. I'm a child of the universe. I'm blessed. I'm a piece of stardust. I'm cherished and loved. And it's really really an everyday exercise to remind myself of all of those things when I'm in that working environment. When I'm at home and I'm just me, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
So it's a struggle for me. But I'm older. I think younger women have maybe slightly less of a struggle, but I see that most of the young women that I know still have that struggle. I mean, like I
Hmm.
said, the patriarchy has done an excellent job of convincing us that we're not entitled to the power that we absolutely own.
And I like what Warrior Girl also posted, because for me, she nailed really a big part of why I don't use the word witch, is because being in my 20s and learning, and when you read the books, um, it's all saying, well, for you constantly have to be casting circle to be to be a real witch. You're casting circles, you're doing spells, you're doing this and that, and a lot of my life just revolves around just honoring, going outside like I have been, and just feeling the energy, feeling the wind on my face, feeling, the water on my toes when I would put them in the lake, and just being in the moment, and not going through, all the having all the tools and doing the full. I didn't do any of that. So for me, I felt like I wasn't entitled to use that word. And that's why I wanted to bring that up, because I'm starting to see now, and I like how she says affirmations. Um, I think being a witch is more than just reciting spells, um, ceremony. I mean, this is just me personally. I'm
Mhm.
not sure how you feel. Um, but for me, it's just something that I'm not drawn to do a lot, and I really don't have a lot of room to do that in. So a lot of times I'll do a lot of things just within my mind, but not physically
Mhm.
connecting.
Mhm.
But yet, on still some level, I do feel like I am still a witch at heart, but not necessarily allowing myself to authentically or publicly calling myself that, because, like Warrior Girl said, I don't do, the whole shebang. And so I was wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Well, so I think, there's many different kinds of witches. There's the kitchen witches, and there's hedge
Mhm.
witches, and there's green witches, and there's, just a gazillion different kinds of witches. So I think that, if you think you're a witch, then you're a witch, basically. I don't think anybody has the right to judge, well, you haven't been casting a circle for a year or whatever. You know,
Mhm.
People who don't understand anything about witchcraft or anything will say to someone, "Oh, you're kind of like a witch, huh?" And you know what? Grab that. Yes, I am. So back off, okay? Yeah. Like, I would say another word, but we're on YouTube.
Yes.
But
Oh, please.
yeah, right. I'd say
I
another.
I drop them too every now and then.
Yeah, I would say one of those other words. But the thing is that you, you don't, what my whole thing is that I don't want people to feel bad about that word. I want them to embrace that word and to
It's
use that word
empowering.
and
Mm-hmm.
empower themselves. And if it bothers people in their family, well, honestly, to me, I'd be like, so what? Who cares if it bothers them? But I do realize, I'm older. A lot of my family is dead. So, it's easy for me to say, who cares what they say? And for a lot of people, maybe that's just not practical. They're
Yeah.
not comfortable with that. So, I think the word needs to be reintroduced into the language,
Mm-hmm.
both well, all three, witchcraft and Wicca. I think all of that needs to be reintroduced into the language for what it is: a wise woman, a woman who has knowledge, a person who has knowledge, a
A
person who
healer.
is on a healer, or a person who is on their spiritual path. Because a lot of my journey as a witch is my spiritual path. It has little to do with spells. It has little to do with, well, yeah, I did go through a period where I was doing all my, um, you know, every day casting a circle and every day going through this whole ritual and learning how to do spells, learning how to do all sorts of divination, learning how to do all sorts of things for healing, for my coven. But what I am now is I'm on a very, very personal journey that gets more personal and deeper really every year. And I reassess it every year and I look at it all the time. Um, and it has morphed, it's changed a lot. But I don't feel that ignoramuses have the right to just throw that word out and judge people in the pejorative.
And it, like, as if they own the word,
Yeah,
like they're
as
entitled
if
to use
them
it.
calling you a witch is a derogatory thing. That I really hate, and I really wish that people would stop doing that. And I would wish that people would stop uh, using the word. Um, can I say the B word?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Go for it.
instead of saying she's really a bitch, they would say she's really a witch,
Bitch.
and that just
And
pisses me
and you
off
look at them saying, you
no
say it like it's a bad
end.
thing.
Oh, just like, and usually it's a woman who's saying it too. And I'm just like, God, you've set us back like 250
Yeah.
years. What's wrong with you? Embrace that she's a witch. Oh, is she powerful and she doesn't care what you think? Yeah, she's both. She's,
Mm-hmm.
like, get over it.
But it's how we're raised too. But I like what Rain brought up here too.
Yeah,
So what's now, this is what my understanding is now with witchcraft. Witchcraft is not a religion.
no.
Wicca is an established religion, as actually the fastest growing religion right now, not just in our country,
It,
but
it has been.
globally.
It has been for the
Has been
last
for many
15
years.
years. The last 15
And
years, it is the fastest growing. And Wicca, there are so many different kinds of Wicca. It's just like with traditional religion. There's many different flavors. And with spiritual rain is saying, does meaning a witch mean you have to follow dogma? That's exactly what you don't do. What
mm,
you do is you set yourself on a spiritual path. If you're a kitchen cottage witch, then that's great. You don't have to belong to a coven. You don't have to do
that's being a
anything.
solitary. So
Yeah,
when
but
people ask me if I belong to a coven, I'm like, well, because I used to say Wiccan, but then when I realized that was also a religion, I wanted to keep more with the spirituality because there is certain well, every religion has a dogma.
mhm.
With Wicca, there are traditions where you do belong, especially if you find a certain coven like that you are part of, that you have certain um, deities that you work with, certain ways of doing ritual, of doing ceremony, of doing the whole, casting circles and everything. Whereas for me, I came from a background of Catholicism, which really is funny because Catholicism is actually um, paganism.
It's
With
so
um,
mysterious. Yeah, there's a lot of
and so
they
that
they
helped
took all
me.
of their mysterious rituals from paganism.
So for me, as I got older, and I got into my, my 20s, and I had a friend say, "Now don't freak out." And I know you're going to freak out, but she goes, "I'm studying witchcraft." And of course, even though I wasn't really a part of the church much, because I was already starting to not like being told that, I'm this, I'm that, and I'm just like, ugh, really? Um, and I still had the same reaction. And she actually invited me to a Samhain festival.
Hmm.
And when I participated in that, it was like I felt community. I felt more welcomed. I felt more loved. And there was such a beautiful energy there that I ever felt really during a mass in a church. But don't get me wrong, I still bring with me from my Catholic upbringing, because I've had people like I met Silver Ravenwolf because her teacher was my teacher when I was in my 20s.
Hmm.
And when she came to do a circle in Buffalo, and she was signing books, and I had my angels book, and I told her that I was raised Catholic, and how in her books she always says, you know um, you don't knock another person's religion or spirituality because you don't want them to do that to you. Well, when I told her that, she looked up at me and just said, "Oh, I'm so sorry about that." And I looked at her, and I'm like, "Don't be, I'm not." I said, because I already was taught about the goddess. Mary was my goddess. So she came with me. And for many years, it was hard to be a part of even the pagan community, Wiccan community, because the minute I told them I still had Mary as a goddess in my life and a few of the saints, certain beliefs, they're all like, well, you know, you don't belong, I got the rebuttal as well. So it was kind of being like I wasn't really welcome being witchy, or in my from my Catholic friends and family, and yet I wasn't being fully accepted into. So it was a bizarre time, Colleen.
Well, let me tell you
But it's
something
getting
about
better though, much more open conversations now, and that's what I
that's
love.
good. And there's actually quite a few books written now about how to speak to your non-pagan family members when you are pagan or Wiccan, which are very helpful, actually.
Mhm,
The biggest difference between traditional religions, Western traditional religions,
mhm,
and Wicca or anything that's more inclusive is that when you're in a circle in Wicca, everybody's participating.
mhm.
Everybody's a part of that
Of the
energy.
ritual. Hmm.
The high priestess may be leading everybody to do certain things just to keep the structure of the ritual going, but everybody's participating. In formalized Western religion, you just do what the priest says. That's it. And then you sit down and you watch them do it. You
Hmm.
don't participate. Although I've been to a lot of churches, they get up and sing. They all throw their hands up in the air. They all collect money. They all hug each other. They all sing. They all,
And
they
then the
all
minute mass is over, they're out in the parking lot cursing at each other.
maybe.
I mean,
Yeah,
my dad did it.
yeah,
you know.
yeah, yeah.
But that's what
Well,
I
it's
loved. I
really
loved the
interesting.
singing. I was part of the choir for a while when I went to Catholic school for a year. And for me, I love nothing more than singing. And kept asking my mom and dad, I want to be up at the altar. I want to be an altar girl. Why are they all boys? Well, I
Yeah.
couldn't understand. It's because, no, you're a girl. And I couldn't, even at that age, understand why. So what? You
Yeah,
know?
honestly, it doesn't make any sense except for, we saved a lot of little girls from all those priests. So enough said on that topic. But
Unfortunately for the nuns, a lot of people don't realize that a lot of nuns were also well,
abuse.
I talk about this openly on my when I do my investigative tarot. A lot of nuns were sexually assaulted by
Mm,
by the men in the clergy and stuff. This has been
mm,
going on since the just before, like we were saying in the back, well, before we came live, Colleen and I were discussing, how far back have these patriarchal religions been trying to control not just women, but the men too, as well, who want to be healers. And um, and I said, well, I think one of the most famous people that we can agree upon was Jesus, because he was a medicine man. He was a shaman. He was telling everybody, you don't need, this all this money. You don't need the greed. You don't need these people telling you how to reach God. God is you. You are God. Go out into nature. That's your church. Love one another. And they could not handle somebody telling people that, you know, God was within them and they were all healers and they didn't need them. And he was one of the first, and then just ends up using him as their weapon against, you know,
Right, right,
subjugating women, men, children.
right.
I mean, getting into, not getting too much into the burning times. But there was more than just burning. There was drowning. There was placing rocks on top of people, um, just a lot of awful things. And it just didn't happen to women, it happened to men and even children, as well. And a lot of it had nothing to do with being a healer or helping, them going against their idolatry. It was them getting involved with taking money from the church and taking the power. And it's all about a power struggle, and it's still going on this day. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think we're ever going to lose it or get rid of it, at least not in,
Mm.
my lifetime. But this past couple of years, with everything that is going on in the world, you're starting to see more people turning away from the patriarchal religions and starting to awaken to their own inner power, their own, letting themselves, letting their spirits guide their hearts and their beliefs, and knowing that there's more out there than what is being taught. You know, I don't try not to go up too much on tangents, but um, I know you have authors that you would like to share. So
Yeah. So do you want me to just skip the first topic and just go right to the authors?
do whatever you would like to discuss, because I think I've got most of what I have marked aside, and just a few little highlighted things, but that could be at the very end.
Okay. All
Um,
right.
but I do like what Spiritual Rain brought up. The classifying. That was the thing. There are so many labels now, even in pagan spirituality. Are you neo? Are you pagan? Are you neo pagan? Are you and there's just so many labels that she's right. Yeah, it just drives you nuts. And that's why when nowadays I just say I'm spiritual, I'm a solitary spiritual practitioner, because there are so many labels now being you know slapped onto everything.
Yeah, that's true. Well, so I'm a teacher in my civilian job. So of course, like a nerdy teacher, I prepared notes of things because we were going to talk about the history, right? And I really don't think that you have to go back to like Egypt or biblical times or anything, because I think because of the patriarchy and the way that women and witches were treated, I think they did either they forced it completely underground for centuries, or a lot of covens and groups just died out because either having to keep things so secret,
Hmm.
or they were all killed or whatever. And so, what I believe really has helped this movement that we're experiencing today going towards Wicca is really has a big foundation in the spiritualist movement of the 1840s to 1920s. It's also known as spiritualism. And people in Victorian England and later the US and Europe just went kind of crazy for spiritualism. And the spiritualism is the metaphysical belief that one could communicate with the dead. They believed that, and this is a quote, the continuity of consciousness after the transition of death, and the possibility of communication between those living on earth and those who have made the transition was possible. The afterlife, or the spirit world, is seen by spiritualists not as a static place, but as one in which spirits continue to evolve. And I don't really agree with this next part, but anyway, these two beliefs that contact with spirit is possible, and that spirits are more advanced than humans. That's part of what I don't believe. Leading spiritualists to a third belief that spirits are capable of providing useful insight regarding moral and ethical issues, as well as about the nature of God. Some spiritualists will speak of a concept which they refer to as spirit guides. We still talk about that today. Specific spirits that, when contacted, can be relied upon for spiritual guidance. In this country and around the world, really US and Europe, in 1897, there were 8 million followers of this movement. So that's pretty big, because the population was not what it is today. It was about a tenth of what it is today. This movement died out in the 1920s due to many public outcries of fraud on the part of mediums. So all those movies you see where they've got the face all rigged up, that's why it died out. But ironically, that spurred formalized groups organizing in order to legitimize these beliefs and practices, and they continue to this day. So it's still practiced, but not through like single mediums, because everybody has such a bad taste in their mouth about that. But it's practiced primarily through various denominational spiritualist churches in the US, Canada, and the rest of the United Kingdom. So I think that's where we get our first kind of laying the table for
to bring it back open and to start.
Yeah. The next person I think that made a huge impact, and then I just have six people. I'm sorry, it's so many. Like I told you,
no,
I'm a nerdy teacher.
Share. This is what it's all about, because then they may not know these authors, and they can go and research, and that's why I love having these open discussions, because we share, the people that we read, that we connect with, and then we learn others, and we can take from there, learn from them. I love it. Go ahead. It's open.
And these are just very short snippets about these people. All of them have biographies, much, more in depth about them. But the first one I want to talk about is Aleister Crowley. So Aleister Crowley was born in 1875. He died in 1947, which is just after the Second World War. He was an occultist, a ceremonial magician, a poet, a painter, a novelist, and, lest we forget, a mountaineer. Okay, so he liked to climb things. All right.
I mostly know all the negative stuff about him. I didn't know all the positive.
No, he was a big outdoor guy too, Heather. So you have that in common with Aleister Crowley. He studied poetry at Trinity College, which is part of Cambridge University. And in 1898, so he would have been a little over 20. So in his early 20s, he joined the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Now that name may be familiar to some of you. The Golden Dawn practices high ceremonial magic, and Aleister was actually trained or initiated by Samuel Mathers. And Samuel Mathers has written a lot of books that have since been published since his death about the Golden Dawn. So he's a big source about the Golden Dawn. Crowley also went to India and studied Hinduism and Buddhism, so he brought all that stuff in. And that was a big part of the spiritualist movement too. Reincarnation was a big deal because they could see that there was life after the body died, which I think is really important.
Whoops. I'm just going to find a picture in case people don't know.
Oh, thank you. Oh, yeah. I was going to look up pictures and I just didn't have time. In 1904, on his honeymoon with Rose Edith Kelly, he was contacted by an entity known as Aiwass. That's Aiwass, from whom he claimed to have downloaded, that's my word, not his word, the Book of the Law. This is another book that you can purchase by Aleister Crowley. And that became the basis of his version of Wicca, which he called Thelema. So Crowley and Thelema became the genesis of the phrase, do what thou wilt. That was their motto. So that was the beginning of the Wiccan rune. So in 1912, he was initiated into a different Golden Dawn order called the Ordo Templi Orientis, which was mainly run by people who were German speaking, but it didn't say that they were actually living in Germany. So I had a feeling they were just somewhere ambiguously in Europe, and Aleister liked to travel. So he initiates into that thing, and then he rises to the ranks to the point where he becomes the head of the British arm of that organization, and he reforms it. He completely commandeers it and reforms it to be all Thelemic beliefs, his Book of the Law beliefs. So, I mean, he was a crafty guy. He was really Crazy man. And so anyway, he was a lot of
Crazy is not
he was
understatement.
very crazy. He did a lot of drugs. But he did a lot with all of his research from Hinduism and Egypt. He was a big Egyptologist, Buddhism, all the Golden Dawn stuff. He brought all of this stuff together to formulate a lot of the foundational beliefs for ceremonial magicians that are in use today. And we still say today, and it harm none, do what thou wilt. So he was a big guy with the whole Wicca thing. Big guy. He's still influencing us.
But
Okay.
is it true though? Because Heather likes to make sure that, you know, there needs to be a balance. But he did a lot of dark magic though. Isn't that correct? He has been known to, how do I say this without getting YouTube too much up into, doing ritualistic things that harm children. Do you believe that
I
that was
don't know.
accurate?
I don't know
Okay.
anything like that about him. But then again, I'm not a biographer of Aleister Crowley. I have not researched him in depth. His name and his writings have come up so frequently in my study of things in Wicca, but I have not studied him. And I
Yeah.
have not studied in depth Golden Dawn, although in my coven, we do a lot of ceremonial magic practices, which are from the Golden Dawn.
Golden Dawn.
So I can't confirm or deny anything about babies. Okay, but we do say it as a joke a lot. We always, it's okay. We already had a baby this month, so we don't need to eat one now. So anyway, we certainly don't do that.
And
Okay,
Crowley is also the co-creator of the Thoth deck that a lot of us readers use as well.
he is, and that's a very
It's a
dark
wonderful
deck.
deck. Yeah.
You should be very careful using that deck, I feel. I mean, you should read a couple of books on that deck, because if you can ferret out the most positive aspects of those cards, great, good for you. But it's just really hard because it's very dark, very dark. It was scary. All right, the next guy that I want to talk about, and you guys might not recognize his name until I tell you what a few things about him, but Gerald Gardner.
Mm-hmm.
He was born in 1887 and he lived until 1964. Now, both Gardner and Crowley were born of upper class British families. So these are two dudes who are very privileged. They were very much, they didn't have to really work if they didn't want to. They had plenty of money. So, yippee for them that they could go and practice all of this stuff, because if they were women in that time doing it, they would not have made it past their 21st birthday. You know what I mean? Like, goody for them. They did open a lot of doors for us, but again, like, guys, I guess, had to do it first to kind of open it up. So now Gardner was part of in England, he was part of the Rosicrucian Order Crotona Fellowship, which is not the regular, I don't think is the regular Rosicrucian order. The Rosicrucian order that we know of today is headquartered in San Jose, California. And it's marvelous. It's a marvelous organization. It's affiliated with Golden Dawn. It is affiliated with Hermeticism and astrology, which is how I connected with it, because I was always studying astrological stuff. But the Rosicrucian Order Crotona Fellowship actually has died out about 15 years after he was a part of it. He also initiated into the New Forest Coven in 1939, and he believed that coven to be the surviving coven of a pre-Christian witch cult, and decided to revive the faith, supplementing it with rituals and ideas that he borrowed from Freemasonry, ceremonial magic, which is Golden Dawn, and the writings of Aleister Crowley. Now, I think Gerald Gardner was crazy, and I do not really believe that this was the survival of a pre-Christian witch cult.
Yeah, I learned about him about a year or so ago, and it kind of creeped me out a little bit. And that's another reason why I kind of backed away from Wicca. And I said, well, maybe I'll just stay this pagan spirituality. But he did do a lot to bring the Wicca now that we
He
know.
did. He did. He created a form of Wicca called Gardnerian Wicca, and he was known as the father of Wicca, which again really pissed me off. If we're going to talk about mothers and fathers, first we should talk about a mother, and then maybe talk about the parents of Wicca, not the goddamn father. Okay. So then we have Dion Fortune. whose name you might recognize if you've ever read any of her fictional novels, because they were really, really interspersed with lots of metaphysical stuff, lots of stuff about tarot and divination and stuff like that. She was a pretty prolific writer. She was a ceremonial magician, an occultist, a novelist, and an author. And she was the co-founder of something called the Fraternity of the Inner Light. And isn't it interesting that she co-founded something that's called a fraternity? It's the world that she lived in. It was just run by men.
Yeah.
So she communed with ascended masters. And she was also part of the Theosophical Society, which is a society that persists to today, to present day.
Yep. Spiritualism. I'm about an hour away from Lilydale. I have never been there, but by next spring, a friend and I are going to go, and she's going to take me. So
Great.
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
Great. In World War II, Dion Fortune organized a project of meditation and visualizations designed to protect Britain. I mean, that's cool. And her novels influenced occult and modern pagan groups, including Wicca, but the Fraternity of Inner Light ultimately changed their name to the Society of the Inner Light. And it still exists. It's a magical society and Western mystery school, which would be a whole other episode on your channel about mystery schools. Founded by Dion Fortune in 1924, it operates out of London, and it is still accepting pupils
today. Wow.
Yeah. Now, I don't know about Dion Fortune's thing, but Doreen Valiente's thing, her school was a correspondence school. So you could learn how to be a witch through the mail. Because that's what was going on in those days.
And well, you had to be careful because you couldn't get really people, it had to be, secret. So yeah.
Yeah. And also they were looking at this as a worldwide thing. I mean, Dion Fortune was trying to protect Britain with a network of witches and spiritualists who could meditate and visualize, and they really feel that they helped Britain avoid
during the World War II.
During World War II, they helped avoid complete destruction, and that's what I've been trying to do with my meditations for world peace for the Ukraine, because I really believe that we can do that. Anyway, Doreen Valiente is my next customer. She was born in 1922 and she lived until 1999. Now, she was responsible for writing a lot of the liturgy that was used for the tradition of Gardnerian Wicca. She was an author and a poet. She published 5 books dealing with Wicca and related esoteric topics. And after World War II, she began practicing ceremonial magic. So really interesting that she waited until after World War II to start doing ceremonial magic. So World War II, I think, ended in, I think I have the dates.
45, 46.
Yeah, 45. And let me go back to your thing where we are here.
And they said that in 1954, Britain finally repealed the, because witchcraft was still,
illegal.
You could be jailed. And so in 54, that was finally repealed, which, helped them a lot too to start.
Yeah. So it took her practicing ceremonial magic until 1953 before she was initiated into the Gardnerian tradition, which is interesting because she was helping him write all this stuff. So one of the things for formal covens is that when you are accepted into the coven, it's not like right away they give you a degree. You have to study and you have to go through a lot of work. And it usually takes a few years for you to go through the various degrees. And in a lot of covens, you take a dedication, and then you're initiated and you get first degree, and then you just stay first degree unless you want to teach or start your own coven. And then they take you through the other degrees. So she worked with him from 1945 until 1953 before she was initiated. So I just wanted to point that out because it was a pretty serious undertaking. So she actually became the high priestess of Gardner's Bricketwood Coven. She helped him to produce or adapt many important scriptural texts for Wicca, such as, now you should recognize these, you guys, the Witch's Rune and the Charge of the Goddess. Doreen Valiente is the one she's credited with writing them, but I think she really took existing material and rewrote it with Gardner.
Mm-hmm.
And these were incorporated into his Book of Shadow. But in 1957, there was a schism in the coven. Valiente and her followers left, and she formed her own coven. One of the reasons that she left, I believe, is because the very next paragraph in Wikipedia says she became an early advocate of the idea that anyone could practice Wicca without requiring initiation by a pre-existing Wiccan. Now, this was a big thing from both Crowley and Gardner, is that they really believed that you could only make a witch by a witch. And I was like, no, you guys didn't do that. You were just born to the landed gentry, and all of a sudden, boom, you're doing ceremonial high magic, you know.
And you still have that patriarchal energy and not masochism. Well, they were okay. I digress with that one. Yes, misogyny and everything still in there.
Yeah. So I think that was the big schism, and all of her followers were probably women. But anyway, she had a significant influence on what we think of as Wicca today. And another little side note here, Gardner and Gardner, so far we haven't talked about Buckland yet. Gardner practiced skyclad. That's naked for those of you who's.
I was going to say, anyone in the chat know what skyclad means?
So if you weren't down for, giving it all up to Mr. Gardner, and who knows what kind of stuff went on. One of their big things was the Great Rite
of the sexual act.
Yeah. So I'm sure that was a thing for Valiente.
I've seen pictures. It's like bondage, basically.
Yep. So anyway, she's credited with being the mother of modern witchcraft, and there's 2 biographies on her. And then we have a guy that you probably won't recognize until I tell you the name of his brand of Wicca, Alex Sanders. He was born in 1926. He lived until 1988. He worked as a medium in a local spiritualist church. Now, 1926, that's right about the time that the spiritualist movement was really kind of going out of favor. So the fact that he was working at a local church as a medium, that's how he could maintain legitimacy in that world, right? That's what the whole movement was going towards, was no, don't be by yourself. And really, when you think about it, the whole idea of the coven is so that the poor witch is not by herself and, risking getting stoned on her way home from a potluck, So anyway, Alex Sanders in 1963, now he would have been almost 40 years old by this time. He was initiated into the Gardnerian Wicca coven before founding his own coven. And he really thought a lot of himself. All these guys did. Gardner and Sanders and
That's why I think the goddess movement really took off, was because of them, the women trying to get away from the brutal patriarchal, going into something like that. And then they're being traumatized and in some ways brutalized and being held down and suppressed. I think that's why a lot of, the women are like, okay, guys, let's go.
Well, but the world wasn't ready for that yet. In the 60s, we just weren't there yet. But get this, in 1965, he had himself, well, I don't know if he had himself, but he was elected as the king of the witches.
Oh, good Lord.
Not only was he elected, but listen to this. It said, he's the king of the Alexandrian witches. So he took his name and smashed it together, and that became his form of Wicca, Alexandrian. And you may have heard of that too. Okay, so Alexandrian witches, as he was directly descended from witches and equipped with knowledge that outstrips his witches. We formally acknowledge you as the foremost authority on witchcraft. Well, this was actually published in papers in England. Can you imagine in the 60s? I can't imagine. If that was the United States, they would be like, okay, we're bombing their house. We're just we're just going to kill them. So this prompted attacks from 2 of his very influential proteges, Patricia Crowther, who has written 11 books on Wicca and metaphysical topics, and Eleanor Bone, both of whom served as high priestesses of their own covens and also greatly influenced modern Wicca. And Sanders has been greatly criticized for his claims of royalty among witches. It's just such a patriarchal thing to do. But his practice has endured, and actually there are Alexandrian covens all over the, well, maybe not all over the world, but definitely throughout the United Kingdom.
And Gardnerian too.
US. Yep, and people are really into it. Okay, then we come to Mr. Buckland. And probably some of you have his books. I know I do. So he was born in 1934 and he lived until 2017. He just died recently, 5 years ago.
Oh, wow.
He was a significant influence on American Wicca. He was a high priest in both Gardnerian and Seax Wicca traditions, and he developed the Seax Wicca tradition.
So really quick, CX?
SEAX, and then new word WICA. Seax Wicca. I'm probably pronouncing
that. I'll have to look that up.
It's English. So during World War II, remember how old this guy was. He was only in high school in World War II, but he had already developed a real big interest in occultism and spiritualism. He immigrated to the US in 1962, so like 20 years later, right? Yeah, so almost 20 years later, he comes to the United States and he establishes a coven in the United States. He's written like 50 books on topics related to the occult. Now, on his mother's side, he's Romani. He's Gypsy. So he incorporates a lot of Gypsy stuff into
folk
his
magic and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he doesn't call his style of Wicca Buckland Wicca. He calls it CX Wicca, which is probably, I don't know what it is. But anyway, now the most significant book that he wrote is one that is often referred to mistakenly as the Witch's Bible. It's not called that. It's actually called Buckland's Complete Book of Witchcraft. And I got to tell you, when I first bought it, I bought it in 1986 when it first came out. And I was completely fascinated and horrified when I looked at it, because that's the one where they have the pictures of the rituals with everybody naked and the bondage and the ropes and everything. You have to understand, though, that those ropes are not, they're not like binding someone so they can't get away or whatever. They're ceremonial ropes that are used in many, many covens just to signify what degree you are. So a lot of those ropes are just little silken ropes. They're not, it's not like somebody's tying you up and forcing you to do things. Everybody who's in that book, in those pictures, was totally willing for what was going on there. So anyway, those are the 6 people and the spiritualist movement that I think really laid the table for the Wicca movement that we have today. And one more person that I want to mention, if you really want to get a feel for the way things have changed. So this is just a little toe dip into the history, right? But if you look at Margot Adler's book, Drawing Down the Moon.
On the moon.
That is an amazing sociologist's survey of thousands of people, I believe, in the 70s, and their ideas about paganism and witchcraft and Wicca and who they are. And really the 70s is when Wicca really started to explode. Now, his book came out in 1986. That really helped things. Doreen Valiente was going, her books were going great guns then. She lived to 1999. Alex Sanders, I never saw any of his books until after he was dead, but his books are out there. Dion Fortune, I read her books when I was young, but I read the novelettes that she wrote, which are heavily tinged with all sorts of metaphysical stuff. So, but I think that this is the crowd that really set the table for what we're in now.
Yeah. And I still to this day, with any books by Scott Cunningham.
He's very good. Yeah.
He has books on
everything. He has books on
the truth about the herbalism,
on
the oils,
practicing solitary. I mean, you name it, he's got it. He's got all sorts of stuff.
His initial book was The Truth About Witchcraft, and it goes through and it breaks down exactly, what it is, what it isn't, at least during his time, because he wrote these books in the late 80s. He unfortunately contracted AIDS through a blood transfusion. He had to have surgery or something. and he passed in 93. But 30 years later, everybody, Scott Cunningham books.
Mhm. And all
I
of his
really
stuff
recommend his.
that he came through, these people have influenced him tremendously.
Mhm.
You wouldn't have a Scott Cunningham if you didn't have all of these people. And there's so many more. There's just
Mhm.
so many. Christopher Penczak, that's another author, just amazing author. And
DJ
his
Conway. I also grew up with
DJ
DJ
Conway,
Conway.
yeah. Now Christopher Penczak still has an active temple that he offers public rituals at in Salem, Massachusetts. So if you ever want to
I used to
experience
go
one of
to
his
Salem on the
rituals,
weekends or
yeah,
during the week when I had off.
yeah,
Yeah, I miss
he's
that.
still going strong. I mean, there's people, Susanna Budapest, she's out on the West Coast. She's got amazing books and amazing information.
And
She's
of
very,
course,
very,
Lori Cabot, she's,
yes,
the witch
yes,
of Salem or
yep,
Massachusetts. I mean, you can't
yep.
mention her name. And I got to meet her once, and she scared me a little bit. I mean, her hair was out the ear. But you know what? When I, walked by and I said, "Do you need help with any?" Because I was working at TJ Maxx. She loved to shop at TJ Maxx. So when I was living in Rowley, Massachusetts, she came in to shop at TJ Maxx, and but just the loveliest lady, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
also too, I'm a little iffy with Silver Ravenwolf, but at least two with Silver. Um, she makes sure that when you do your magic, when you start developing, showing interest in being a witch, she really puts you to the test. She wants you to write. She poses question after question. Why do you want to do this? What
Mhm.
are you hoping to? Are you going to continue? I mean, she really, her initial couple books were really good for, especially for me in my 20s, to sit down and say, okay, grab a journal, grab some paper, and let's honestly as I can, let's answer these questions. It was a few years later that, and of course, booksellers like, Llewellyn and them, they want to keep sales going. So from what I understand, they'll push authors to put stuff out, maybe things they don't necessarily, really would want to put out. I kind of backtracked a little bit, really, with Silver when the Teen Witch Kit came out. I didn't mind that she did a book for to teach kids, at a it just was a funny time, and but still, I look back and from what I've learned from her book, Scott's book, Phyllis Carroll, I absolutely love this. I can't wait to pick it up again. I'm so glad I did pick it up because guess what? I found everybody my ticket stub from my Stevie Nicks
Oh,
concert
cool.
in
Cool. Very cool.
2007. I'm like, oh my god, there's my but there was just something I wanted to just a few little things I wanted to read that I highlighted through her book. And it kind of reiterates a little bit of what we've already discussed, but I love how she brought um the Native American, and not just Native American, because this will be for a different episode, because right now I have some friends who feel that there is a severe cultural appropriation that's going on with a lot of Native American spiritualities and beliefs. And then there are some fellow readers like Tony from Shining Hawk. She's absolutely beautiful. She embraces and she brings that into her work. Um, and just learning to become maybe more mindful of where our practices are coming from, what we want to study, make sure that we're contacting the appropriate people, making sure people are being properly reciprocated, I guess might be a word
Hmm.
for the knowledge that they share, because there are a lot of indigenous people from South America, North America, other places too. In Russia, we have the Lap people, we have the Inuit. I mean, there are so many different indigenous cultures. The Aboriginal people too in Australia are still struggling with suppression, with what the British government's, just like here in the United States with Native American. So what Phyllis brought to her introduction, I love that she acknowledged not just Native American, but to also remember there are other indigenous religions and beliefs, our European ancestors, the Celtic. That's DJ Conway actually has a really good book. I need to find it again. It's um, Celtic shamanism, and that
Mhm.
explores our ancestors from Great Britain area, Northern Europe, parts of Eastern Europe, the Germanic, the Teutonic. Um, but with her introduction, witchcraft, this was once a word that conjured images of green faced hags flying on brooms and worshiping the devil. But today, mainstream Americans can pick up a newspaper or book, turn on the radio or television, talk to their teenagers, or take a course to learn the reality of witchcraft. Wicca, both a specific tradition of witchcraft and a popular synonym for witchcraft, I use the terms interchangeably in this book, is a beautiful, powerful spirituality that has much in common with Native American and other indigenous religions and is the fastest growing religion in America. And I loved how both her and Scott Cunningham, and that book came out in 93, are still acknowledging that a lot of what is that Gardner and the earlier authors, pioneers, um, may or may not, because I have not read those books, mentioned that a lot of what we practice today came way back, into our ancestors long ago when shamanism was the connection to the plants, to the earth, um, and animism. Someone asked me, well, then you believe in animism? And I wasn't sure because there's so many isms out there. And I looked up briefly, and I love it. The belief that objects, places, and creatures all possess a distinct personal essence, a spiritual essence. And for me, I think that's where my core at this moment lies, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
And I think it's going to take a long time for a lot of people, because they have been so traumatized by the patriarchal religions that were brought up, excuse me, brought up in that now that we have these tools where we can start healing those ancestral lines and start building that energy up so that as we move forward, we're more accepting. And I'm not putting down anybody's religious belief of, they're still Christian if they are Islam. I'm not knocking anybody's religion, but trying to bring more of a less of a subjugation. Look what's going on in Iran with these women. That's pure courage and strength right there. They're literally taking all their lives into their hands, and this whole energy is building up, and women are finally starting to say change needs to be made. And I cannot deny that there are men that are standing by these women as well, taking their lives into their hands. So right now, everything going on with Russia, Ukraine, Iran with the women, what's going on here with elections and women's rights. A lot of this is just building and building. And it's so good to see that for a majority, that no matter what spiritual paths that we come from, I've noticed a lot in those who are in my chat and in other lives, other people's chats that I go into, that there is a respect, that there is more of a um, there's more toler. I even don't even like the word toleration. The more the respect, more integrating spiritual beliefs into what they may already believe, and that it's it's a beautiful beginning. And I have to keep reminding myself that because I live in a very red area, and those beliefs and those feelings are challenged every day when
mm,
I walk out this door. Um,
wow,
but I just love the fact that we are getting more now too with the weather changes global. A lot of these young kids, Greta, turn. I always say her last name wrong, but Greta Thunberg, who is just 18, 19, 20 years old, spearheading, global change for weather. We have these young kids that, from schools, that lost classmates to gun violence with, the mass shootings. um, all starting to take a stand and say there needs to be change. And while I see some, I want to cry when I see these young kids with their parents standing out on the corners of the streets with their Trump flags, excuse me, and their F Biden, flags. And I'm just like, it's still so hard. But like Scott Allen from Spiritual Lessons, you just got to keep sending them love. You got to send them light and just send them the energy that their heart opens and that their eyes open. And I think a lot of more of that is happening right now as we get more in touch with our um our own power, like we started in the beginning, not to be afraid of power. We need to take our power back. And it can't be done in our communities, it can't be done in our governments, it can't be done locally until we do it with ourselves. It has to
Good
start
point.
from in here. It has to start from in here and not be afraid of our power and our voice. And showing that light and shedding that light is only going to make what this world needs, to grow and to heal and to move forward. So,
Very, very well said. Thank you.
I'm sorry I've been missing the chat, but it's hard for me to look at chat and talk in without my brain going off to another direction. Yes, a lot of people are leaving the church. And a part of me, I'm like, yay, but then a part of me is also a little sad because it's like the church is not working to enlighten themselves, to update their beliefs. If they could just be more open to the differences of people and allow, um, women to be more involved. There's just, the, it's the rebirth. That's the only word I can keep thinking, especially this time of year, right now with the solar eclipse we had with the new moon in Scorpio, um, the elections coming up, all the changes going on globally. It's a real strong shift. And, you know, it's up to them to either start doing their religious practices from a place of love, what the true messages were from their ascended masters, from their prophets, or whoever they want to refer to, their higher power. But if not, they're going to get left behind. And I guess I'll just stop with there. You know, only love can grow things. Hate destroys. And so yeah.
Yep. We gotta just spread love every chance we get. And I think that's why I'm still in the job that I'm in. I'm, you know, I find that that is a place that needs a lot of love. And when I'm
Mm-hmm.
there working and trying to remember that I'm a powerful being, then I gotta put a sign up in my office now, I think, so that I can just keep all these things in my head, the things that I need to do, because
Mm-hmm.
it's not just going there and performing my job, it's going there and um, spreading love, which is, you can't walk up to every person that you're working with and say, thanks for picking up my copy job. I really love you. I'd get locked up in a hot minute, if I was doing
Or
that.
just say I appreciate. I mean, yeah. Or you can just say I
No, I
appreciate.
just I do it telepathically. I don't even try to do it verbally because I tried it and it was not received well. It was received that, I'm just a weirdo that should be avoided. So I just do it telepathically. Every person that walks past my office, if I'm aware of what's going on, I just send them love. I just open my heart chakra and I send a big old beam of love. And every once in a while, I just do that for the guys that I work with because they're just, they're not Neanderthals. They're really nice guys. They're just in an environment that is so dominated by this patriarchal thinking that they just can't think
Mm-hmm.
any other way. They're trying to survive
Yeah.
too. They're trying to make it too.
A lot
And
of
this,
brainwashing and everything. Yeah.
yeah. they're just not brave enough to really stand up to it. They think that it's going to cost them their job or something. But anyway, it's just so important for all of us as light workers. That's another word that I think people feel much more comfortable with rather than witch. So if you think of yourself as a light worker or a shaman or a healer or a witch or a Wiccan or a pagan or a spiritualist or whatever you think of yourself as, just always send love to everybody. That is the most important thing. It'll get rid of your stomach ache, guaranteed.
And I don't know if you can see it, but Rain said, thank you to you for sharing your knowledge and your passion. I
Oh,
mean,
thank
that
you.
comes really through. So
Oh, thank
yes,
you. Yeah,
we
I'm
all
nothing is
appreciate.
not passionate. I am very passionate about this stuff. It really means a lot to me.
So before you go, did you want to just maybe do a card for the collective, and then
Yeah,
we'll be done for the evening?
let's
I
do that.
brought my witch's oracle, and Sherry, if you're still here, I know that you just got this deck. It was gifted to her, anonymous.
Who
So,
who whose deck is that?
um, where is? Let me grab. I just had their book here because I was going to read something out of it, but I don't need to now. So where did I set it? There they are. It is the Witch's Wisdom Oracle cards by, oh boy, I am going to totally, Barbara Michael John Free and Flavia Kate Peters.
Oh,
I
that's
like a,
pretty.
I like a majority of
Witch's
the
wisdom.
images. Some
Okay.
of them are a little kind of like, they could have done better, but there are some that just, I mean, like this is one of my favorite. Look how they did for
Oh, that's
England.
pretty. Yeah.
It's really beautiful. So,
Okay. Well, I have all of my ET cards out, so I'm going to pull from the Starseed Oracle.
oh, I have that too. That's a beautiful deck. I
It's a
just love
pretty
the
deck.
artwork that they, yeah.
Yeah, it's really
Sometimes
pretty.
I tend to buy decks more for the artwork, and then I realize I don't really connect necessarily
Wait,
with the.
wait, you're not supposed to buy them just for the artwork? Just because they're pretty? Did you hear that?
Oh
Oh,
no!
shit. I have really wasted my money. I buy them all because they're pretty. I buy them
I
all.
just like pulling them out, and just flipping through, going, "Oh, you're lovely. Oh, you're so pretty. Oh yeah." I have so many that. Okay, I'll just go really quick. I pull one, and I got the the herbal kitchen, the alchemist. So this is the time to start creating the type of life that we want, the manifestation. You have all the ingredients right there. You have your mortar and pestle. You put together exactly what it is that you want to create in your life. Do you need more love, more balance, less self judging? Just making a list of all the things that you would like to start co creating with the universe. And two, also with the herbal kitchen, when we cook, when we prepare our meals, what we're feeling as we're cooking and preparing, that energy goes into our food. Sherry, I was just mentioning the deck of cards. Um, so when we prepare our foods that we eat, if you're into like homeopathy or naturopathy, everything that we do, no matter what it is that we're doing, we're putting that energy in there. And with the alchemy, it's a reminder that whether we're cooking, preparing dinner, if we're crocheting something for somebody, if we're there was something else on, but I'm drawing a blank. But everything that we do, our thoughts, our feelings are in that moment. We're putting that energy into that object. And with the herbal, I'm feeling more food. So start maybe bring some more healthier eating. I know we're going into the holidays, lots of candy for Halloween and Thanksgiving with all the goodies and with Christmas cookies and all that stuff. But just being mindful of, what we're feeling, what we're doing while we're preparing food and what we're feeding to ourselves. And knowing that when we do that, we're creating with spirit, and not just with spirit but with ourselves. We're connecting with our creator and with ourselves. So I'll put that over to.
Very cool. So these cards, if you have them, Heather, then you know they like to stick together.
Oh
So
my goodness,
so,
yes.
so I got two cards. So I'll
Oh,
talk
that's
about
fine.
one and then the other. Okay. So
Yeah, they
this,
both wanted to come out.
they both wanted to come out for sure. And this card is really, backing up all the stuff that you were saying. It's earth pulsing, pulse of the mother, slow down, time in nature. Oh, you can't see it because of my
Oh, that's kind of cool though.
because of my
The green
because of
screen.
my background, but you can see kind of the words. So
Um,
it's really nice. And I think that all of us connecting with nature, no matter what kind of witch you think you are, no matter what, you still need to connect with nature. Even if you're not a green witch or a kitchen witch or whatever you are, you still need to connect with plants and trees and the dirt and the water
mhm.
and the wind. You need all of that. If you don't connect with that, you're really shortchanging yourself and you're really harming your health. The more you connect with nature, the healthier you are. So I
Because we're a part of nature and nature is us.
exactly,
It's like
exactly.
isolating yourself from another human being. You're cutting off your source of
That's
energy, of
right.
your spiritual energy. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. You have to connect with nature. And then the other card is something that I said earlier. It's not time yet. Wait, things are being woven. And let's see. Oh, good. You can see this one.
Yeah.
So she's on the side of the planet or the side of
Just
the
waiting to jump right in. Yeah.
yeah, she's jumping. She's going to jump down. And I do think, you mentioned the eclipses. Yeah, we're in the middle of the two eclipses, and they're both, I noticed a lot of people really, really felt impacted by the energy of the eclipses. And
Yeah.
the one coming on election day is going to be even bigger than the one that we just had. So if you
Wow.
were at all sensitive to that one, you'll probably be sensitive to the other one. And shameless plug, please watch my videos about both
Yes.
eclipses and astrology for October and November
Yep.
because
And
you'll get a lot
Colleen's
out of it.
channel link is right in the description below, along with
But
and
it's important, and I do predictions for everybody for the eclipses, so it's really important. So, but anyway, yeah. So not time yet. Hang in there. Send lots of love, and soon
mhm.
it'll be time.
It might be bumpy for a little bit, but we're all
It
gonna
might
get through this.
Hey,
Hmm.
we got through this. We got through it so far. So, you know,
Hi, Kristen. Yes, I just got Chris. If anybody too, check out my flip through on my page, Kristen Louise's Star Rune Oracle. I used that last night for the new moon and solar eclipse readings. Her cards are absolutely beautiful. I got them in the mail, and just here, let me just really quick just pull up into
ooh,
the
that's
deep.
cool.
Yes, so what she does is she uses the rune and then she creates three different images for each rune and a different not necessarily not affirmation but keywords, and the images that she chose are just absolutely it's all humanity based. It's really beautiful. So definitely I have a little flip through. Please check out her cards. They're absolutely wonderful. Great energy. It was wonderful to use them last night, Kristen, so thank you very much. So, and
Great.
let me do this. And
Great.
you got anything coming up this week, Colleen, before we go?
Oh, I'm just so relieved to be done with all the fairs. That really took a toll. That was a lot. But no, I'm just getting back to doing my videos all the time. And pretty much once a week, you'll get a video from me. And so, I just filmed the Angel Pick a Card video. That'll be coming up probably in a couple of weeks because this week is going to be, I think, the tarot scopes for November are posting, and
Oh,
then
wonderful.
will be an Angel Pick a Card and astrology stuff is posting. So yeah. One good thing about that 8-week stint of doing fairs all the time is I really got myself on a good schedule for posting. So now I have to live up to it. I don't know if I
And I
can, but
miss the
I'm
Ren
gonna try.
fairs. You're so
Yeah.
lucky. Oh, I haven't
Mm.
been to a run fair since 98, 97,
Oh, oh,
98, 99.
you
So
gotta
yeah.
come. You gotta come sometime
Oh,
because they're really,
one day I'll make it back.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, and for because now I have reliable internet. Yay.
Yay.
I'm going to be able to follow through this Friday. I'm going to pull out my little book here because Heather forgot to pull that out because she was going to mention this. I'd started my Spirit of Color um, segment now for my show, and the ladies Heather and Priscilla from the Crone Zone will be joining me this Friday. I have to set a time again with them. I think it's going to be around 2 or 3 p.m. in the Eastern Standard Time. I'll be putting up a thumbnail soon for that, and we're going to be doing the color teal. We'll be discussing,
Nice.
the energy, the crystals, talismans, anything that represents that color teal and what it means spiritually to you, and on all levels as well, because color affects us on emotional, physical, spiritual, on all levels. So I'm looking forward to that this Friday. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to do an investigative tarot tomorrow this week because I've just been so crazy busy. Um, if not, it will be back next week. And oh, hi Heather, thank you for stopping in. And I know Kristen Louise stopped in. So
So, what are you
thank you,
doing next
ladies.
week for Witchy Wednesday, Heather?
I don't know. We haven't discussed yet. I haven't thought. I mean,
Hey,
I opened up this book and it was just like rediscovering.
okay,
I opened up Scott's and I know that Miss Sherry H would like to be a guest on our
great,
show. I reached out to Val from Dragonfly
good,
Crystals. She
good.
will be joining us on a Wednesday. So I'm just really looking forward to, just having these open, and honest conversations. It just, the more we share, the more that, we're transparent, or for me, for more authentic, and just getting the conversation going, that really helps with kind of fighting back against um, that negativity. You know, it's like I said, being in quiet. Now we have more tools where we can be, more open about what we believe and what we can say and to share our knowledge. And, sometimes social media is not so good for us, but there are times when social media is phenomenal. It's really one part, it's trying to detract from humanity, but at the same time it's bringing humanity together. It's that crazy balance, the
Yeah,
light, the dark, the yin, the yang, the male and the feminine. It's just, without one you can't have the other, so each one strengthens the other, you know so but yeah, we'll discuss. I'd be interested to
okay,
see what you would find it. And then I'll reach out to Val and to Sherry and see if either one of them would be interested next Wednesday and what they might want to talk about.
okay.
So, yeah, I
Sounds
want this
good.
to be a natural, organic process where just kicking back and just, shooting the shit.
Sounds good. Sounds
Alrighty. Thank you
good.
again. Everyone's viewpoints, yes, honesty in everyone's viewpoints. Everything's to be respect. Yeah. Can you tell it's been a long day to be respected? So, um, so alrighty. I think we said hello to everybody. We said goodbye. Thank you again, and we will see everybody next week.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Mm-mm.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
Oh, thank you
Bye,
for being here.
everybody.
Bye.
Take care.